Hello, my name is Anderson Fish, and I'm doing this interview as part of my philosophy class at Lake Sumter State College. I'm with my friend Lana, a psychology major at Lake Sumter State College. I chose Lana because of because she's a close friend of mine and a major in psychology. Specifically, she specializes in developmental and behavioral psychology, and I thought with these traits and with this expertise, she would be able to answer these questions with a special authority to it and give insight that I otherwise couldn't find elsewhere asking anyone else. These questions related to fallacies and related to like how people communicate with each other, argue, and come to conclusions of what is an empirical reality heavily relate to behavioral psychology, as well as how people develop and their cognitive biases that they develop with it. So, of course, I would want to speak to someone who is going to become a psychologist, psychiatrist,
A psychologist, yeah.
a psychologist in the future. To start, since we're going to be talking about logical fallacies and their usage within like arguments and discussions, what does it mean to you to think logically?
It ties into the discussion of the whole heart over head discussion, and I think using logic is using your head, using like actual evidence and facts, like physically, not just based off of like a gut feeling, like things that are like factual in front of you.
So you're like saying a gut feeling is something that can kind of be viewed as like an emotional impulse,
Yeah.
while thinking logically is actually evaluating the situation, looking at like aspects of it, I suppose.
Definitely, yeah.
Building off of the idea of like thinking logically versus illogically, can you think of like an illogical argument you once heard someone else use that like actually landed? Like somebody says something completely illogical, or didn't even respond to an argument, and people still like were on their side, still believed them.
Like like possibly something on social media, I guess.
I suppose,
like,
yeah, if you saw like a social media bandwagon, somebody posts, oh, this person's a pedophile, zero evidence, just the allegation out there with no evidence attached, and it was entirely believed by like a significant group.
Can I bring the abortion? Okay. I guess it kind of ties into the whole religion and abortion thing, because I know that's a very big conversation topic right now in like politics. Not really big, but when it came to the election and everything. Because a lot of people's main points when they talk about people who are pro-life and whatnot is whenever it ties into religion of like, oh God, like you don't want to be a murderer. It ties into like emotion kind of, and not really science, and it's based off of like.
You're saying that like a lot of, I guess, pro-life arguments have their basis in like appeal to religion.
Yeah,
where religion is something unfalsifiable by its nature based on faith. You're saying that a big example of a fallacy being used is people arguing whether or not something should or shouldn't go into law based on something unfalsifiable like religious belief,
yeah,
or religious commandment.
It goes the same way with like same-sex marriage. People are bringing in like the Bible verses and everything, be like, oh, like a marriage is only between like a man and a woman, like biologically or whatever.
When we're discussing something legal, whether or not we're going to give the legal status of marriage.
Difference between literally church and state, and people are like crossing that line.
Yeah. And you'd give essentially just the first fallacy you think of as people using their own faith, not the universal faith of the nation, but their own faith to project onto legal matters.
It's like a feeling, it's like that gut feeling whenever people talk about religion. It's because it is faith-based. There's not really evidence, I guess. Yeah, there's like stories and whatnot, but it's not like a concrete yes or no answer.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a feeling people have, and they're going off of that feeling.
Like, religion is essentially a manifestation of someone's impulse.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that, like, using a logical argument or using a fallacy or something like that can make sense, in, like, a strategic sense? If you're in an argument with someone, for instance, think of, like, ad hominem, where it's like you attack their character instead of them themselves, or instead of their argument, sorry. So, like, what you just said just now about how you're arguing that religion is a manifestation of, like, emotional impulse and a fallacy, and I said, well, you're a bitch-ass motherfucker, as my argument.
Yeah.
You're a godless heathen, is my argument, not
Well,
actually addressing
the
the
actual
argument
problem.
itself, yeah.
I feel like there's, like, a way of having, like, a good balance and stuff, but using it just by itself, I've never witnessed it really being, like it actually bringing up and solving something. It's kind of just attacking the person's character and whatever. I feel like the only time a person's character should kind of come into consideration is, like, if they're trying to fulfill a role, I guess. I kind of would say presidency, but it's, like, this day and age, people take it to the extreme of completely attacking their character and stuff. But when it comes to, like, even then, like, what they're really, I don't know. I can't really think of, like, a good example, but I agree, kind of.
So what you're saying is that, of course, like you just mentioned presidency, for example, do you think it's, like, smarter if you're trying to go against someone in an election to attack their character, like, you're a fucking rapist, instead of your economic policy is not
does
lucrative?
work. It does work because of it's so kind of embedded in the presidential election. It's kind of like the people's default rather than going off of actual statistics and policies and everything. It's like it literally does work because people agree with it without realizing how bad it is.
Okay,
so
yeah.
It works, but I don't think it's right.
You don't think it's right, but at the same time, you are agreeing. It is strategic. It has its place. If you're not trying to win the actual argument, you're trying to win something from the argument, then it makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
It's sad, but...
Do you think that would apply to even, like, individuals? Like, think of a relationship where really it's just the two individuals where it matters.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally just sounding like manipulation, but think of, like, an emotional abuser. How whenever someone brings up, hey, I didn't like the way you did this, and then their response is, you're a bitch-ass motherfucker, or some variation of that, like, oh, well, you did this happened in your past, well, you're just this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, even though those arguments clearly are fallacious, they're not real arguments, they're not helpful, do you think those still have, like, do you think, this is tying into the next question, actually, do you think it's better that humans are capable of those fallacies, or do you think we would be better without them entirely in any discussion?
So, it kind of depends, because the way that I see it of, like, logical and illogical, it's, like, again, heart, or, heart over head or whatever. I feel it's good to have a good mix of them, but I don't think it's good to use just one or the other. I feel like with certain things and certain decision makings, because we do hold the ability to have feelings and, like, complex feelings and whatnot, it's hard to just leave it out entirely without, like, hurting some people. But there are certain decisions where you have to make where it probably will emotionally hurt some people, but it won't, like, physically hurt them or bother them. It's kind of just, again, a feeling.
Okay, yeah, so you're saying it's good that we have logical reasoning, but at the same time, trusting your gut is not just a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you shouldn't avoid it.
It's good to trust your gut, because I know people, what is it? It's kind of been, like, proven yet not proven at the same time, where, like, people, like, trusting their gut, it always leads to, like, good and whatever.
Can you recall a time when you used logical fallacies when arguing with someone?
I can't really recall using them on other people, because I probably have, but I don't remember, because I tend to be a very logical person, but,
Or you're just afraid of confrontation.
What? Who said that? But I've had them recall, I can kind of recall people using them on me.
How so?
Like, whenever I confront them and they, so, I guess a quick little rundown, how do I even run this down, right? I've had people attack me and my, I guess, character because they were hurting, rather than actually, like, figuring out the problem, or actually addressing, like, how I hurt them, or what I did, or anything like that. And they kind of attacked my character by trying to call me a pedophile, and calling me, like things, but it's because the person was hurting, and it was because I unintentionally hurt them or like made them feel bad or something. So then in turn they blew it up and turned it on me.
Which fallacy did they use against you? Like calling you a pedophile, bro? You're literally a teenager. Like that sounds like a false equivalency unless you're dating like a 9-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm assuming you're not. But
no thanks. I'm okay.
But like. That sounds like a false equivalency fallacy, where it's like, oh, you're the same as like a 60-year-old man finding 8-year-old girls on the internet because your girlfriend's in high school.
Yeah, they tried to use the whole thing of like, this is the equivalent of what you're doing is like being a racist or being a homophobe.
So their argument was
like, it's the like dating somebody that's like 2 years younger than me is like the equivalent of you're a racist and like.
So there's two at play. Well, there's two false equivalencies. There is the you're literally a pedophile. There's not even a definition where that fits. And then there's literally as bad as racism. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
That's a good example of a false equivalency fallacy. Also, you were mentioning multiple people. Is that like a group of people who are doing that?
Oh yeah, I was ganged up on.
Bandwagon fallacy.
Yeah, they attacked me for being a pedophile, even though I literally, like, there was no proof. But even then, like, I wasn't not doing anything weird.
Like, wait a minute, if kids can't consent, how could they testify? Sorry. I say when I'm 2 years younger than you, but...
Not even. You're like 6 months younger than me.
Hell to the no, weren't you born in 2005?
I was born in 2006, you dummy.
Oh, you're still a full year older than me.
Oh.
So.
Oh, whatever. I forgot what I was talking about. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it was kind of like because I hurt this person, she's bringing up something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
And then this group of people was tying on to the thing that's completely unrelated rather than actually, like, talking about what I did. And even now, I still don't fully understand what the hell I did, because they choose to talk about this rather than what actually happened. So...
Well, I just thought of a good fallacious argument. You're 19, I'm 17, you're literally talking to a minor. Your argument's invalid.
You're 18.
No, I'm 17. I don't turn 18 till the 24th. Yeah, I'm 17, girl. I'm not a legal adult.
Oh,
see, look, that's my argument. You're talking to a minor. You just got caught on camera talking to a minor.
Have I kissed you? Have I fucked you? No. That's not the same thing. I feel like people are your friend. Like, if it's like the equivalent of like a family friend talking to me.
This is what we're actually talking about though with fallacious arguments. Notice how that makes literally zero sense under scrutiny. But think of like a large group of people who essentially a hive mind, like you're talking about, just hearing the words Lana was talking to a minor, they already are out to get you. Mm-hmm. So they're going to use that as their excuse, their argument, even though it's not logical and has no basis in real reality.
Yeah.
That is essentially the fallacy that we're talking about that happened to you.
Yeah.
I was just using that as an example.
Okay,
and then
sorry.
you immediately went to, like, think logically about it. But notice how you were stumbling in response to those allegations. That's exactly how fallacious arguments succeed.
That's what they
is
go
because
after.
When you try to respond to something very blatantly illogical that's not attempting to do logic, and when you're trying to explain and give logic to it, you're not really addressing a bandwagon or a crowd of angry people's concerns. You're just pissing them off more.
Yeah, you're fueling the fire because that's what they're going after, is that reaction.
Like, have you ever thought about how in our culture nerd is an insult?
Mm.
Even though that really shouldn't make any sense because you're just calling them intelligent. It's because our culture has a trait called anti-intellectualism, where we're immediately distrustful of someone who seems like they're intellectual or educated or something like that. And that's a common fallacy, once again, there, that, oh, well, you're just a college-educated prick, to their argument.
Yeah. It's basically what it sounds like.
Yeah. And, do you think social media, now that we're talking about, like, the modern day, contributes to fallacies and fallacious arguments? Like, do you think arguments as a whole in discourse is much more difficult these days due to social media seemingly promoting fallacies and, like, attacking people's character over their arguments ad hominem?
I feel like it's definitely gotten more popular to jump on bandwagons simply because it's trending. And I feel like it's become, yeah, it's gotten more popular and stuff. I feel like it's like in the past it's definitely still happened, obviously, but it's kind of like it's almost become our norm. Like there doesn't have to be any factual evidence about it. Like, oh, this person said this because we have like two people with like have who kind of have like the same experience or whatever, so it has to be true. Like, yeah, I feel like it's kind of popular. What was the question again?
You answered it.
Okay.
I was just asking if social media has made using fallacies and arguments much more prominent as opposed to actually using logic and addressing arguments by their merit. Like attacking the person making the argument before actually attacking the argument.
Yeah, it's definitely popular, especially in like politics nowadays. Well, and like even celebrities and stuff. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's stupid.
Ooh, here's an example actually that I would use against you, talking about the other fallacy that you were describing used on you.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, you described that you were pro-choice when it came to abortion.
Mm-hmm.
So you say you're pro-choice when it comes to abortion. I say, well, you only believe that because you're a pedophile. See, haven't arguments gone in that direction more these days? Instead of like addressing the weighing whether or not abortion is actually right. No, you're just a fucking pedophile.
When did I be pro-elected?
more kids.
That is too dark. My apologies.
Oftentimes, though, that's the best way you can respond to fallacious arguments, is saying something equally absurd instead of trying to logically explain yourself, because nobody's going to take it seriously. If you don't take it seriously, nobody else is.
That's the entirety of our generation is just clapping back at one another with stupidity.
For real. Well, your generation's clapping kids, but...
We're in the same generation. What the fuck are you talking about?
Alright. And this is related to the social media question. Do you think examples like the Salem witch trials are similar in the way that modern social media, the way it's an interconnected web, bandwagons are way easier without evidence, people turning against an individual just rapidly with very little evidence? It's almost similar how like an isolated town like Salem would rapidly turn against its own members just based on rumors. Like, do you think those are the same or inherently different because of how wide it is? Like, what's your perspective on it?
So, I know the Salem witch trials was a tragedy, and I know we talked about it, but at the same time, I feel like we've gotten so used to how things are that people aren't realizing how bad it actually is in social media and how bad the bandwagon thing is going on because it's so normalized. I feel like I don't really know the facts behind it, like how many people are, dying or killing themselves because of the fallacies and stuff like bouncing around.
Or how many people lose their careers.
Yes, I don't know the statistics or anything, so I can't really compare like the two. And
nothing.
What's that?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I want to see how you edit this.
Pop off, girl.
Fine. Stop! I swear to God. I'm gonna smack you.
See, there's another fallacy, appeal to violence. Instead of actually addressing my argument, you just threatened to kill me.
What argument? You're the one punching me.
You're a pedophile. Help, I'm being
Says the one
attacked.
that looks like a Discord mod.
Says the one who's talking to a minor.
Are you ageist?
Yes, I am. How did you know? My beard.
You look... I can't even clap back because it's just too fucking stupid. My brain doesn't even go there.
Yeah, the only thing you do clap is minors, so... So, getting back on track to fallacies related to social media and like comparisons to the past, like Salem witch trials, where do you draw the line, like in their similarities and differences? Do you think we can look to the past, like the Salem witch trials, when we're applying like modern past lessons to modern examples, like for instance modern politics being entirely dominated by attacks on character rather than coherent arguments?
I feel like it would be wise to like take in what has happened in the past and change things. But at the same time, I feel like in this society it's kind of impossible because people try and do that in school. They try and like give you history lessons to, you know, not repeat that, but it always ends up repeating itself.
It just gives me inspiration. Like, oh, that worked for them. Let me see if it works for me. Like the Salem witch trials. Witch!
I can't do this anymore. Can I leave? Can I opt out?
Nope, too late. You're already here.
But I mean, that's happening with gay people. I mean, it used to happen in the past. You know, that's where the word faggot came from. So, I don't know.
Accuse people you don't like of being gay.
I mean, that's happened. That's what happened with the Salem witch trials. That's what happened with people who, whenever slavery was a thing and gay people and everything, they would get, you know, literally burned at the stake. But I don't know. I feel like it's hard to like almost like, yeah, obviously now it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's like it's still popular, but in like a less like violent way.
I was about to say, I think it's way more popular and widespread because of the interconnectedness of the internet, but at the same time, it's not as serious where people still lose their careers when in the past, when it was more socially conservative, you could use very minor accusations like couldn't be proven nor disproven, like someone's homosexuality, to get them literally killed.
Yeah, definitely.
And even something like a witch. Witches don't exist, at least.
Taylor here?
I'm just looking at you, purple and black, but...
No, this is... Listen, okay?
This is stylish, okay? But
Exactly.
witches, generally speaking, just going on the base assumption witches don't exist, using an accusation like that literally cannot be proven nor disproven, because it's like proving if Santa Claus is real, as an argument that would get someone tangibly killed. Of course, today, most accusations are accusing people of being things that actually do exist, unless they're getting accused of being, like, a lizard person.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, if somebody's getting, like, called, like, gay or racist or whatever, there's, like, a good point, or a good, percentage of the population that, like,
Would just
like
bandwagon.
Yeah, well, who would bandwagon, but also people who, like, defend them because, like, why is, like, being gay, like, a bad thing? Or, like, people, if you're getting called racist, like, people will, like, or, like, a pedophile, people will, like, do the research and stuff. Yeah, there's gonna be a bandwagon of people, like, yeah, screw this person, like, they're bad or whatever, but then, technically, it's not ruining their career.
I think of something that, like, comes to mind immediately, like, when we were born, like, around the election of Obama, a common argument was that Obama was not American. He was born in Kenya. He's a foreigner. Mm-hmm. Even though there's a bunch of documentation that supports the fact that he was born in Hawaii, it's his dad that was born in Kenya, people still bandwagoned on Obama. It's like, you're an immigrant, you're a foreign agent, you legally cannot run for president, you cannot be elected to president, as, like, an example of where, even though it's entirely not based in reality, a bandwagon still has, like, tangible effects.
Yeah, because people just want to believe anything that goes along with what they want.
I mean, this is bringing up very, very recent events. Zohran Mamdani from New York, the newly elected, like, Muslim from Africa of Persian descent, who didn't get elected, but he won the New York primaries. People are accusing him of, like, being a foreign agent and, like, he should be deported. Because it's essentially a bandwagon claim that he's a foreign agent and that he doesn't have naturalization papers, which, fact of the matter is, all the proof indicates that he has naturalization papers. That's simply a rumor spread to discredit him.
Yeah.
And it's a very popular one, too, with his success in the election. Examples like this, essentially, would you say, like, the way this has worked has stayed the same over time, or do you think this is, like, inherently different? Like, this is something new? Or, like, I guess Salem witch trials is just an example. Like, do you think back then, pointing at a random member of your community and trying to get them killed via lies is the same as today, like, dragging someone's name through the mud on provably false allegations? Just because people will believe it without a second thought.
I think they're similar because they're using the same, like, fallacies and stuff, but I would not compare the two because back then internet did not exist, and then now internet and, like,
global
social media,
communication,
it exists, and we have, like, the evidence and resources, we have the resources to actually find evidence and stuff, if it's, like, real or not, And, like, back then, violence was... It's just, like, a different culture.
Oh,
so, like,
yeah,
that's why
so
it's hard to compare.
back then, there was literally no way to prove it true or false.
Yeah.
When today, you can literally prove it true or false with complete ease, and yet still it seems to make no difference.
Yeah.
Because it's preying on the gullibility of people rather than their internalized fears.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
Not
see
sure
that.
what yeah.
All right, thank you very much for doing this interview with me. I got exactly what I want, where you showed the fact that, of course, you have a background in psychology in the way that you answer these. Thank you for applying your real-world experiences with this as well. I appreciate you doing this with me. Of course, when discussing fallacies, logical fallacies, cognitive biases, etc., there's, of course, an ethical concern in mind where, as was stated previously by Lana, head over heart, when we ignore people's heart, when we ignore people's gut feeling on the basis of them being illogical and try to apply, like, sterile standards of science to emotional and psychology, we're making a mistake, because in my view, people's feelings should be treated adjacent to reality because they have real world effects, and that's of course what we see with these fallacies and with these examples that we were talking about. Logical fallacies are almost inherent to all human communication because it's something instinctual that instead of reading a long-winded argument, we would rather just go, yep, that's a pedophile. I don't even need to think about what he's talking about, even without adequate evidence that someone would be some label applied to discredit them. Essentially, that's the conclusion that I got from this anyway, with how we were talking about it. Once again, thank you very much, my dog. Hell yeah. Alright, you can end the recording now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that the fucking thumbnail.
That's funny.
Alright, I'm starting now.
It's looking all musty.
Lobster. Okay. Alright, are you ready for the have you ever intentionally used the illogical or fallacy question? When have you been a bitch?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never really gotten confronted before.
Boom! Boom, you just got confronted. Do you feel confronted?
That's an illogical fallacy.